Honestly, I never believed in spiritual matters or ghosts. I am a final year architecture student. My thinking is always logical: structure, materials, and space. But poverty spares no one. When you are burdened with tuition debt and the rent is over 2 months late, a job paying 1 million VND for one night shift, cash immediately after the shift, is something you cannot refuse, no matter how dangerous it smells. That is why I was at the West Wing of the City History Museum at 10:45 p.m. last Friday. This area is closed for renovation, so it is completely separated from the main visiting area. The air here is thick, smelling of old paper, rotting wood, and something pungent like formaldehyde for preserving animal corpses. Uncle Hung, the security manager, is a gaunt man with dark circles under his eyes as if he hadn't slept for a month. He didn't ask about my experience, didn't need to see my student ID. He just handed me a heavy-duty flashlight, an old walkie-talkie, and a crumpled laminated paper. "Listen carefully, kid." His voice was hoarse, smoking continuously. "The mission is simple. Patrol once every hour. Record the temperature in the galleries. And most importantly, strictly follow this paper." I looked down to read. There were 5 typed rules, but the ink had faded in many places. Warehouse door number 3 must always be locked. If you see it open, do not enter. Report immediately via radio. Do not turn off the main hallway lights. Even if the breaker trips, turn it back on immediately. If you hear children laughing in the ceramics gallery, put on headphones and turn the music up to max volume. I smirked silently. Just tricks to scare the rookie. But my smile vanished when I read rule number 4. This line was colored red, shaky handwriting written over the old typed line. 4. Never look into the eyes of the general statue in the main hall for more than 5 seconds. If you accidentally look, bow your head in apology and back away slowly. Uncle Hung, is this a joke? I looked up and asked, trying to act casual. Uncle Hung didn't smile. He looked straight at me, eyes extremely serious, even fearful. The guy Nam who worked before you asked the exact same question. He quit after 2 days, and now he's lying in the neurology ward at Bak Mai Hospital. If you want the money, do it. Otherwise, go home. I swallowed, nodded. 1 million is too much. I took the radio. 11 p.m. Uncle Hung locked the iron gate outside, leaving me alone in the building nearly 2,000 square meters wide. The sound of keys clicking echoed in the quiet space, sounding strangely piercing. I sat in the tiny security room, surrounded by grainy black and white camera monitors. A cold feeling began to creep in. Not the cold of the air conditioner, but the cold running down the spine. When you feel you are being watched. I looked up at camera monitor number 4, main hall. There, standing tall in the empty space, was the general statue made of jackfruit wood, lacquered in vermilion and gold, over 2 meters high. Even through the grainy screen, I could still feel his eyes, painted in glossy black lacquer, staring directly at the camera. And I swear, the statue's head seemed to tilt slightly to the left, compared to when I walked past it earlier. It's probably just the camera angle, I reassured myself, unscrewing the cap of a water bottle and trying not to think about the fact that there are 7 hours left until dawn. The clock on the wall ticked dryly, showing 2:15 a.m. Drowsiness began to set in, heavy on my eyelids. I drank the whole bottle of coffee I brought since midnight, but the effect of caffeine seemed unable to overcome the creepy silence of this place. It's time for the second patrol. According to regulations, I have to go around the La Dynasty Artifacts exhibition area and the ceramics hall before returning to the duty room. I grabbed the flashlight, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open to the corridor. The air outside the duty room was significantly colder. The temperature dropped suddenly, making goosebumps rise on my arms in waves. The flashlight beam swept patchily over the walls, painted with lime that was yellowed by time. The sound of my sneakers hitting the ironwood floor echoed with thud. Thud. Sounds reverberating from the darkness ahead, sounding like someone was walking in the opposite direction. I entered the La Dynasty Military Mandarin's exhibition area. Along both sides of the aisle were dozens of guard statues made of jackfruit wood, life-sized, carved in the 17th century. The dark red lacquer layer had peeled off in many places, revealing the black wood grain underneath, looking like open wounds. I swept the flashlight over each statue. Everything was still normal, until I stopped in front of the third guard statue on the left. I remember this statue very clearly. At 11 o'clock, during the first patrol, I stopped to admire it for quite a while because I was impressed by the carving details on the chest armor. At that time, the statue's two hands gripped the hilt of a long broadsword, the tip of the sword planted straight down, touching the edge of the fourth pattern tile from the pedestal. I am an architecture student. I am obsessed with alignment lines and proportions, so I remember for sure the sword tip formed a perfect perpendicular line with the floor. But now, the sword tip is hovering about 5 centimeters above the ground. I rubbed my eyes, shined the flashlight close to the sword tip. No mistake. It had been lifted. The angle of the statue's arm also changed. The elbow bent slightly, creating a posture as if preparing to draw the sword up. Nonsense, I muttered, my trembling voice breaking the silence. Must be wood shrinkage. I tried to find a logical explanation. Humidity in the museum changes at night. Jackfruit wood is an organic material. Warping is normal. Or maybe the latch holding the hand is loose? I reached out to check the joint at the statue's shoulder, but the moment my finger touched the rough wooden surface, I snatched it back. It was cold. Not the cold of wood, but biting cold, like touching a block of ice. And worse, the wood surface was slightly damp, sticky. I shined the light on my finger. A thick, reddish-brown liquid stuck to the fingertip. I brought it to my nose to smell. The smell of rust. Or is it the smell of old melting paint? A chill ran down my spine, making me dare not check any further. Instinct told me I had to leave this place immediately. I backed away, eyes still glued to the emotionless face of the guard statue. In the flickering light of the flashlight, its tight-lipped mouth looked like it was curling into a mocking smile. I turned my back and walked quickly to the duty room, trying not to run, because I remembered an unwritten rule my grandmother used to tell. If you meet a vicious dog or a ghost, don't run. Running stimulates their predatory instinct. Back at the security room, I locked the door bolts, heart pounding in my chest. I looked up at the camera monitor of that area. The statue was still standing still. The sword tip was still hovering. Just because I'm tired, I told myself. Hands trembling, lighting a cigarette. Even though I knew smoking in the duty room was prohibited. Definitely just because I'm tired. 3:07 a.m. I was trying to light the third cigarette to calm my heartbeat, which was still beating wildly. When that sound appeared, it wasn't footsteps, nor was it a knock on the door. It was a sound. Heavy. Screech. Scrape. It echoed from the east corridor, reverberating through the glass door of the duty room. It sounded like a massive grinding stone being dragged by someone with great effort across the ironwood floor. Slow, intermittent, and spine-chilling. Screech. Scrape. Every time that sound rang out, I felt my teeth ache. According to the map, that direction leads to the Cham Culture Gallery, home to sandstone reliefs and large, ancient ceramic jars. I didn't want to go out there. I swear to God, every cell in my body was screaming at me to stay put in this tiny duty room. But responsibility, and the damn camera in the corner recording everything for my boss to check tomorrow morning, forced me to stand up. If a thief breaks in and steals an antique vase, I'll go to jail for a long time. I gripped the rubber baton tightly, the other hand turning the flashlight to its brightest mode. "Who's there?" "Security," I shouted. But my voice sounded thin and weak amidst the vast space of the museum. Answering me was only silence. The grinding stone sound stopped immediately when I spoke. I tiptoed to the door of the Cham Ceramics Gallery. The wooden door was ajar, a small crack open, enough for a blast of biting cold wind to blow out. But what made me freeze was not the cold, but the scent. A pungent smell rushed straight into my nose. The smell of moldy clay, just like the smell of newly dug earth after a summer rain shower, mixed with the fishy tang of rusty copper. The smell of antiquity, of the deep underground. I pushed the door open and entered, sweeping the flashlight wildly. The spacious room was immersed in darkness. Giant ceramic jars stood silent like bloated beer bellies in the night. The Apsara dancer reliefs on the walls seemed to be dancing under the flickering flashlight. No one there. I walked deeper inside, the sound of my rubber soles sounding harsh on the tile floor. I walked to the center of the room, where a monolithic sandstone Linga Yoni altar weighing a ton was placed, and my heart skipped a beat. On the floor, right next to the altar base, was a white scratch about 20 centimeters long, distinct on the old ceramic tiles. The scratch was brand new, stone dust still speckled around it. I looked up at the stone altar. Its position was completely off from the square frame marked on the floor. It had been moved. A stone block weighing a ton. No machinery, no pulleys. And the smell of damp earth. It was getting stronger. Strong enough that I started feeling nauseous, throat churning as if I just swallowed mud. I had a crazy feeling that the smell wasn't coming from the air, but emanating from the cold stone artifacts around me, as if they were sweating. Suddenly, the radio at my hips screeched with an ear-piercing static, breaking the deadly silence. Gzizzed. Help. Gzizzed. I flinched, almost dropping the flashlight. The static lasted only a second, then cut off, leaving me standing alone in the middle of the room, full of stone figures staring at me. I rushed out of the Cham pottery room like a madman, not daring to look back even once. My own footsteps echoed throughout the long, deep corridor, sounding like dozens of people were chasing close behind. Back at the security room, I slammed the door, trembling hands turning the lock bolt twice. I threw the walkie-talkie onto the table as if it were a poisonous snake. That help sound. It couldn't be real. I am alone. Only me in this damn museum. Definitely radio interference. I slumped into the chair, panting, cold sweat streaming down my spine, soaking my shirt. I need to see it. I need proof. My hand trembled, moving the computer mouse, reopening the recording file of camera number 7, the angle covering the entire Cham ceramics gallery. The screen displayed the timestamp, 3, 8, and 15 seconds a.m. In the grainy black and white video, I saw myself, a small young man holding a flashlight examining the scratch on the floor. I looked at my fearful appearance on the screen, feeling both ridiculous and pitiful. But my forced smile vanished when the clock on the video jumped to 3, 8, and 45 seconds a.m. That was when I was bending down to smell the clay. On the screen, right behind my back, in the dim dark corner where my flashlight didn't reach, a pitch-black shadow slowly separated from the wall. It was tall, taller than me by at least 2 heads. It didn't have a clear human shape, but looked like a rough block, rigid, with 2 shoulders square to a bizarre degree. I held my breath, pressing my eyes to the screen. That shadow didn't attack me. It just stood there, less than half a meter behind me, bowing its large head down as if smelling my hair. Nausea washed over me. At that time, I felt a cold neck. I thought it was a draft, but no. It was because that thing was breathing on my neck. I fast-forwarded the video to the part where the radio crackled and I started and turned around. On the screen, the moment I turned my head, that shadow disappeared. It didn't run away, but dissolved into the air or hid extremely fast into the shadows of the large ceramic jars behind. But the most terrible thing was not the shadow. I rewound to 3, 8, and 50 seconds a.m. and pressed pause. I zoomed into the left corner of the screen, where the sandstone dancer statue was placed. In the video, the face of the dancer statue was turned completely towards me. Its mouth was wide open, pitch black, like a bottomless pit. I slowly turned the chair to look out the window, towards the Cham ceramics gallery. From this distance, I saw nothing but thick darkness. But I knew, in that darkness, there were things moving that the naked eye could not see. Only soulless machines could capture their images. And now I know a truth. I am not alone. They have awakened. I should have quit right after that night. Any normal person would have done so. But the debt collection bill pasted on the hostel door and the threatening calls from the creditor kept me there. I deceived myself that the black shadow on the camera was just a technical glitch due to damaged magnetic tape. That was a fatal mistake. The 9th night shift. The 2nd week of work. The initial fear had turned into a lingering obsession, gnawing at my nerves every day. I began to memorize the location of every artifact. And precisely because I memorized them, I realized the horrifying change happening slowly right before my eyes. 2:45 a.m. I was checking the folk terracotta pottery exhibition area on the 2nd floor. These were small statues, only about 30-40 centimeters high, depicting scenes of daily life. A farmer harvesting rice, a buffalo boy, a mother lulling her child. They were placed in thick, tempered glass cabinets, carefully sealed to prevent moisture. I remember very clearly the statue, the woman waiting for her husband, in glass cabinet number 12. It was a crude terracotta statue, sculpting a woman sitting with knees drawn up, a quiet face, eyes looking far away, sad but very gentle. I often stopped to look at it because it reminded me of my mother in the countryside, but tonight When the flashlight swept across cabinet number 12, I froze. The woman in the glass cabinet was no longer looking far away. Her head was bowed low, her hands no longer hugging her knees, but reaching up to clutch her head tightly, clay fingers digging tightly into the high hair bun. I pressed my face close to the cold glass. That gentle face had disappeared, replaced by an expression twisted to the extreme of pain. The mouth skewed to one side as if screaming in silence. 2 eye sockets sunken deep, staring wide in terror. Not just her. I panned the flashlight to the statues next to her. Buffalo Boy's statue, lying curled up on the ground instead of sitting on the buffalo's back, hands covering face. Farmer statue. The hoe in his hand had snapped in 2. I swear yesterday it was intact. Face crumpled, as if suffering a thunderous blow. All of them. Didn't look like they were acting out daily life scenes anymore. They looked like they were reenacting the final moment before death. A small sound rang out from inside glass cabinet number 12. I looked back at the woman statue. From her dry terracotta eye sockets, a stream of thick, black liquid slowly oozed out. It ran down the cracked cheekbones, dripping onto the pristine white display pedestal. That was not condensation or moisture. That liquid was pitch black and slimy like sewage sludge from years ago. The glass cabinet was sealed tight with silicone. Outside air could not get in. That liquid. It was born from inside that terracotta block itself, as if the statue was crying black blood of the past. And then, in the absolute silence of the gallery, I heard a long sigh. Very soft, very close, right on the other side of the glass. I ran for my life back to the duty room. Limbs so weak I almost dropped the keys twice before opening the door. As soon as I got inside, I pushed the old sofa to block the entrance, ignoring that it was meaningless against things that can walk through walls or dissolve into thin air. I needed a reason. I needed to know why this hellish thing was happening. While frantically searching for the lighter dropped under the sofa, my hand touched a hard, square object nestled between the torn cushion layer and the dusty wooden frame. I pulled it out. It was a black faux leather notebook, the cheap kind students often use, but moldy and warped from dampness. The first page recorded the owner's name, Tran Van Nam. The name Uncle Hung mentioned. My predecessor, the guy currently lying in the mental asylum. I turned page by page. The first pages had neat handwriting, recording shift dates and times very systematically. But later on, the handwriting became more careless, pressing hard into the paper to the point of tearing the next page. There were pages stained with reddish-brown spots. I shuddered, realizing it might be dried blood. August 14. The general statue moved again. This time he turned his face completely towards the window. Why did he look out there? Out there is just an empty lot. August 18. I heard crying. Not a child. It was a woman's weeping. It came from ceramic cabinet number 12. I swear, her terracotta eye glanced at me. I swallowed dryly. Cabinet 12. The very cabinet I just saw. Nam wasn't crazy. He saw what I saw. I flipped quickly to the last pages. The handwriting now was huge, crooked, as if written in extreme panic. August 22. I understand now. I looked up old warehouse records in the basement. They are not decorative statues. Oh God, they are not folk art. This terracotta pottery exhibition area, those statues, they are scapegoat effigies. The ancients made them to bury with those who were executed, so their souls have a dwelling place and do not disturb the living. Each statue contains a part of the resentful energy of the unjustly dead. The next line was underlined 3 times, in eye-piercing red ink. They don't want to be displayed. They are trying to reenact the execution. My hand shook violently, causing the notebook to fall to the ground. Reenact the execution? Images of statues curling up, in pain, holding heads, screaming in glass cabinets, rushed back into my mind. They are not describing life. They are acting out their own deaths. The farmer with the broken hoe, maybe he was beaten to death while working in the field. The woman holding her head, beheaded? And the child. Suddenly, the lights in the duty room flickered continuously. The loud sound of the backup generator outside suddenly went silent. Darkness swooped down as fast as a cut. And in that pitch-black silence, I heard the familiar screech. A screech. Sound. But this time, it didn't come from the hallway. It came from right behind the duty room door I just blocked with the chair. They have arrived. Darkness is not merely the absence of light. Here, in this century-old museum, darkness has weight. It pressed heavily on my chest, creeping into my ears, my nose, thick and suffocating. I frantically pressed the flashlight switch. After 3 hard slaps on the flashlight body, a sickly, weak beam of yellow light flared up, cutting through the pitch-black night. Low battery. This damn flashlight was supposed to run for 8 hours, but now its light trembled like a candle in the wind. Outside, the storm had begun. The rain lashed against the slate tiles on the high ceiling, creating a chaotic sound, drowning out the sound of the heart drumming in my chest. Zigzag lightning tore through the sky, casting cold white light through the frosted glass windows, clearly illuminating the distorted shadows of trees, twisting in the storm. But right in the short silences between the thunder and the rain, I heard the most terrifying sound of my life. Thump, boom, thump, boom. It rang out from the main hall, where the general's statue and dozens of wooden guards were placed. It was not human footsteps. Humans wearing rubber or leather shoes have elasticity, but this sound was of a hard object, weighing hundreds of kilos, crashing directly onto the old ironwood floor. The floor beneath my feet shook violently with each vibration, and there wasn't just one. There were dozens, even hundreds of such footsteps moving chaotically. The sound of weapons clashing, clank, clank. The sound of wood creaking like old bones twisting, and the spine-chilling sound of grinding stone, screech. Screech, weaving in between. I huddled in the corner of the room, hand-clamping mouth to stop the gasping. Through the gap under the duty room door, I saw the flickering lightning reflected in the hallway. Shadows. Long, stiff shadows were gliding past dizzyingly fast. They are running. They are not patrolling. They are not moving slowly like in horror movies. They were thundering like an army charging into battle, or worse, like a pack of hunters cornering prey. Crash! A terrible collision sound rang out right nearby, as if someone just threw a boulder at the wall. Lime dust from the ceiling fell onto my hair. Are they smashing things, or are they searching? I looked down at the phone. Black screen. Dead battery. I was completely isolated from the outside world. In my hand remained only a useless rubber baton and a dying flashlight. The chaotic footsteps suddenly stopped. Silence crashed down, heavier than the noise before. Then, a single sound rang out, crystal clear, right outside my flimsy duty room door. Click. The sound of the outside bolt being slid open by someone, or something. I locked the door from the inside, but I forgot that this room's door is an old type, with latches on both sides. If someone flips the outside latch, the inside latch loosens. The doorknob slowly rotated. The door burst open inward with such force that it knocked the sofa I used to block the door to the side, as if it were made of foam. I didn't dare wait to see what was walking in. The survival instinct rose stronger than ever. I threw myself through the broken glass window at the back wall of the duty room, the only remaining escape route, and fell with a thud onto the corridor leading to the storage area. Shards of broken glass cut into my hands and face, stinging, but I had no mind to care. I must get out of here. Main gate. I must run to the main gate. I scrambled up, gripping the flashlight tight, stumbling and running for my life towards the main hall. Thunder rumbled in the sky, shaking the whole floor, resonating with the thundering footsteps chasing behind my back. When my weak flashlight beam swept across the main hall area, my heart felt like it stopped. The ironwood pedestal carved with dragons and phoenixes, the throne of the general statue over 2 meters high, was empty. No, not empty. On the pedestal, my canvas shoes I forgot at the beginning of the shift remained. But that giant statue weighing 100 kilos had disappeared. A biting cold wind carrying the strong smell of lacquer and rotting wood rushed straight into my face. The hair on my neck stood up. I slowly panned the flashlight to the left, blocking the only exit leading to the emergency door. He was there. The general statue stood towering in the narrow corridor, taking up almost the entire passage. Under the flickering light of the flashlight and lightning, the vermilion and gold lacquer on his armor flashed with ghostly gleams. But the most terrible thing was the statue's pose. No longer standing solemnly like during the day, his legs were spread wide, knees bent in a horse stance, right hand raising a wooden broadsword high, the blade pointing straight at my throat. Rule number 4. Never look into the eyes of the general statue for more than 5 seconds. I remembered that warning vividly, but how could I not look when those eyes painted in glossy black lacquer were staring wide open, rolling wildly and seeming to rotate within the wooden sockets? My flashlight began to flicker continuously. Zip. Darkness covered, light. The statue had moved 2 meters closer. The broadsword lowered slightly. Zip. Pitch dark. I heard wood twisting and cracking, dry joints rubbing against each other. Light. He was right in front of me, less than 3 steps away. I could clearly see every crack on his painted face layer. The bright red mouth under the long beard made of real hair was curling up, revealing jet black teeth carved in extreme detail. I was cornered. Behind me was the wall of the storage room. In front was a giant wooden block full of murderous intent. Sorry, I stammered, voice choking in throat, trying to bow head down to avoid that gaze. But it seemed the apology was not enough. In the lightning flash from the window, I saw the giant wooden arm swinging high, winding up for a slash down on my head. Crash! I threw myself rolling to the right out of pure survival instinct. The ironwood broadsword slammed down hard on the spot where I just stood, the force so strong it shattered 3 ceramic floor tiles, sending stone dust and sharp ceramic shards flying into my face. If I had been a second slower, the thing shattered would not be the tiles, but my skull. The sound of wood impact rang out ear-piercingly, the aftershock numbing my hand resting on the ground. The general statue paused for a beat. It seemed the missed strike caused the heavy wooden block to lose balance. This was the only chance. I couldn't stand up, could only use both hands and feet to crawl through the narrow gap between the statue's leg and the corridor wall. The pungent smell of lacquer and the musty smell from the old robe rushed straight into my nose, causing nausea. I had crawled halfway through. Lightning from outside cast light on the emergency exit door 5 meters away. The door of life. But I forgot one thing. He didn't just have weapons. Just as my left foot slid past the pedestal, a giant hand, cold and hard as rock, reached down, grabbing my ankle. Triple A! I screamed in pain. Rough wooden fingers tightened around my ankle with the power of a hydraulic clamp. I heard my joints cracking. It felt like flesh was being crushed under 1,000 tons. It wasn't just holding, it was dragging me back towards the blade being raised again. I struggled madly, fingernails scratching on the slippery tile floor, but in vain. The statue was too strong. I was dragged across the floor, centimeter by centimeter, back into the deadly shadow at his feet. In extreme panic, my right hand groped and grabbed the rubber baton fallen nearby. No thinking, no hesitation. I spun around, putting all remaining strength of the right arm, whipping the baton hard onto the wooden wrist, gripping my leg. Thwack! The sound of rubber hitting solid wood sounded dry. The blow was so strong the recoil made my hand numb, almost dropping the baton. The wooden hand still didn't let go. The blade above began to descend. Let me go, you damn ghoul! I screamed, striking the second blow. This time I didn't aim for the wrist. I aimed for the fingers, where the wooden joints were joined more fragilely. Crack! A crisp cracking sound rang out. The jackfruit wood thumb snapped off, flying onto the floor, rolling clatteringly. The grip on my ankle loosened immediately. I kicked my other foot hard into the statue's face for leverage, yanking the injured leg free from that crippled hand. Pain shot up to my brain, but adrenaline pumping in my blood made me forget everything. I scrambled up, limping and rushing towards the emergency exit. Behind my back, sounds of cracking wood and low growling rang out. Not human sounds, but like wind whistling through a narrow crack, full of anger and resentment. Every step was torture. My right ankle was swollen, burning as if there were fire inside. Every time it touched the ground, sending a brain-freezing jolt of pain. But I didn't dare stop. Behind my back, the thump. Thump. Sound of the general statue chasing was getting closer. The rhythm, regular and cruel, like the knocking of the Grim Reaper. I rushed through the antique painting gallery, heading towards the main door. But right as I turned the corner, I stopped short, almost slipping on the slick wooden floor. I couldn't believe my eyes. At the end of the hall, blocking the main door, was a living fence. No, a wooden fence. Dozens of guard statues, the ones I thought were standing still in the east wing, had now gathered here. They stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a pitch-black wooden wall, tight with no gaps. Bamboo spears and wooden swords pointed straight at me, forming a bristling forest of spikes. They didn't just move randomly. They knew how to coordinate. They were deploying a flanking formation. They cornered me. Bastards! I screamed in despair, tears and sweat mixing together salty. The heavy footsteps behind had arrived very close. I could feel the vibration of the floor beneath my feet. Caught between a mad general and an emotionless wooden army. I'm dead for sure. My eyes darted madly, looking for an escape. To the left was the side hall, where a tempered glass wall looked out to the garden. That was the only chance. I changed direction, rushing towards the side hall. The pain in the leg made me limp high and low, running posture pathetically crooked. Behind, the sound of wood clattering rang out. The guards started moving to block my retreat, but they were slower than that, General. I grabbed a decorative ceramic vase placed on the hallway shelf, a heavy Nguyen Dynasty vase. I hugged it to my chest, gathering momentum to run towards the large glass pane. Triple A! I screamed to gather courage, putting all body weight and inertia into the collision. Smash! The sound of breaking glass rang out like an explosion. The tempered glass cracked, then shattered into thousands of pieces like corn kernels. I dashed through that rain of glass, my whole body flying out into midair. I fell with a thud onto the soggy, muddy ground of the garden outside. The hard landing made me roll several times, face planting into a puddle of freezing rainwater, mouth full of mud and weeds. Shards of glass embedded in my arms and back, stinging, blood starting to ooze out, mixing with rainwater. I coughed violently, trying to scramble up, dragging myself as far from the building as possible. About 10 meters away, I turned back to look. Under the blinding lightning flash, I saw them. Dozens of black shadows stood crowded right at the edge of the broken glass door. They stood dead silent, creating a jagged wall of heads and shoulders. In the center, the tall general statue stood out prominently. He stood there, hands still gripping the broadsword tightly, eyes of black lacquer staring glaringly at me through the pouring rain. They didn't step outside. It seemed an invisible boundary kept them inside the building. Or, perhaps, they didn't need to chase anymore. Because when the lightning flashed one last time, I saw his mouth corner curl up higher. Not an angry smile, but the smile of a predator who has just marked its prey. The red and blue headlights of police cars and ambulances spun dazzlingly, shining on the yellow-stained wall of the museum, creating a chaotic but safe scene. I lay on the ambulance stretcher, covered with a silver thermal blanket, but the trembling in my marrow did not subside at all. Police Officer Tuan, who directly led the team to check inside, stepped out with a frowning and suspicious face. He held the crime scene report in his hand, looking at me as if I were an addict having a high. You claim someone was chasing to kill you? He asked, voice grumpy. You say a group of tall people besieged you in the hallway? Yes, that's right, I whispered, the nurse bandaging the cuts from broken glass on my arm. Statues. They were wooden statues. They came alive. The officer sighed, snapping the notebook shut. Listen, young man. We turned that entire west wing upside down. No one there, no signs of forced entry, warehouse door locked tight. The galleries are silent. Only the glass door in the side hall was smashed by you from the inside. Impossible. I sat up violently, ignoring the stabbing pain in my ankle. The general statue. He blocked the hallway. I broke his finger. The officer shook his head wearily, pointing towards the wide-open main museum door. The general statue is still standing properly on the altar in the main hall. At the foot of the pedestal, even the dust layer hasn't been shifted. You might have hallucinated due to inhaling toxic gas or mold in this old building. We will record this as a work accident. I froze. They had returned. In the time I crawled out and the police arrived, they had returned to their old positions. Neat, tidy, like nothing ever happened. At that moment, Uncle Hung, the manager, walked up. He looked at me, then looked down at my swollen leg, his eyes showing no surprise at all. He signed some bail papers with the police, speaking up that I was a part-time student, maybe due to exam pressure, so my nerves were weak. When the police dispersed, Uncle Hung shoved a thick envelope into my hand. Your salary, and extra compensation. His voice was deep, whispering just enough for two people to hear. Take it and go. Never come back here, and don't tell this story to the press. They'll just throw you in the madhouse like Nam. I intended to throw the envelope back. Intended to scream that he was an indirect murderer, but then, the pain in my right ankle flared up violently, making me look down. The nurse just cut my jeans leg open to check the wound, and even she had to take a cold breath. On the bruised, swollen flesh of my ankle, it was not a normal impact mark. It was a deep, pitch-black indentation. 4 long parallel streaks on one side and a short one opposite on the other. Clear, sharp to every detail. It was a handprint, but it was not a human hand. The fingers were unusually long, bony, and rigid. And most terrible of all, at the position of the thumb of the handprints on my flesh, the mark was interrupted. It was amputated. I shuddered and looked up at Uncle Hung. He was also staring at that mark, face pale. He knew I wasn't lying. I had actually broken that thing's thumb, and this is the proof. A death seal stamped on my body. "Lucky for you," Uncle Hung mumbled, turning his back and walking hurriedly into the night. "It only grabbed your leg. If it had grabbed your head, 6 months and 17 days have passed since that fateful night." I moved 3 times, each time choosing rooms on the highest floor, as far from the ground as possible. I quit architecture, switching to freelance graphic design, so I never have to set foot in old buildings or museums again. I even developed a fear of mannequins. Just walking past a fashion store and seeing plastic figures standing in the glass cabinet, my heart tightens again. The suffocating feeling, like being strangled, rushes back. The hand-shaped bruise on my ankle never faded. It turned from purple to dark black, etched deep into the flesh like a hideous tattoo. The dermatologist said it was strange tissue necrosis, but I knew what it was. It is a seal, a tracking chip. I thought I had escaped. I thought geographical distance would save me. But for the past week, the signs have started to return. First was the smell. Every morning waking up, my closed rental room on the 5th floor smelled faintly of moldy clay and pungent lacquer. Even though I closed the windows tight, turned on the air purifier to full power, that smell of the deep earth still seeped into every fiber of the bedsheets. Next were the dirty streaks. The morning before yesterday, I found reddish-brown mud streaks on the windowsill. It wasn't mud from shoes I wore in. It was red clay used for firing pottery. And last night was the most terrifying. I startled awake at 3 a.m., their witching hour. My whole body was stiff, sleep paralysis, unable to move even a finger. In the quiet space, I heard that sound. Screech. Scrape. It didn't come from the hallway. It didn't come from outside the door. It came from right inside the built-in wardrobe opposite my bed. Sound of wood rubbing against wood. Sound of a heavy object trying to maneuver in a narrow space. And mixed in was a knocking sound, clack, clack, steadily on the closet floor. I recognized that rhythm. It was the knocking of a hand missing a thumb trying to claw at the wood surface. The wardrobe door slowly slid open a small crack. In the pitch darkness inside, I saw 2 tiny points of light glinting like black lacquer. He found me. He doesn't need to run. He has eternity to hunt. And he didn't come to kill me right away. He came to claim back what I took. I am writing these lines as the dawn just breaks. I packed my bags to run away again, though I know it's useless. If you are reading this story, please remember one thing. Never look into the eyes of statues for too long. And if you accidentally see a jackfruit wood general statue missing a thumb on the right hand, don't run. It's useless. Kneel down and beg him for forgiveness. Don't make the mistake like me, because tonight, I know he won't just stand in the wardrobe anymore.